Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to the Brick Filmers Guild podcast, hosted by us, the Four Monkeys. On this podcast, we had the extreme pleasure of chatting with Jared Jacobs of GoldYeller. Jared is a Canadian brick filmer that relocated to Boise, Idaho during his early adulthood. He mostly creates sports brick films and has done commission work with the Golf Channel, U.S. Open Tennis, and NASCAR, just to name a few. His YouTube channel, GoldYeller, was created in late 2010 and has over 1.2 million views. His Instagram has over 33,000 followers. His brick films and interviews have been seen on social media and TV around the world millions of times. I want to give an extra quick shout out to our wonderful Patreon supporters: Spuggastew, Frame 5 Studios, Mind Game Studios, Dark Dragon Films, Forest Fire 101, Sanjira, Spencer Katz, and Paganimation. We can't thank you guys enough for supporting our podcast. This podcast is sponsored by the Lego animation book Make Your Own Movies. This book is an illustrative and comprehensive guide to stop-motion animation that covers everything from equipment suggestions and lighting techniques to creating special effects and covering emotion. The Lego animation book Make Your Own Movies is a must-get for any brick filmer from novice to expert, perfect for all ages. If you would like to help support our podcast, you can do so by becoming a Patreon supporter. Get podcasts at least a week before anyone else, and other perks only available to our Patreon supporters. So, without further ado, here's our conversation with Jared. Good morning. We have Jared Jacobs here of GoldYeller. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jared.
Thank you for having me. This is I've been looking forward to this for like 2 years now.
Well, we've had a lot of fun watching all of your work, and we've been listening to all of your interviews, loads of amazing interviews. So like the first thing I have to ask is, how did you do it, and how long did it take?
Just kidding there.
Yeah, that's the one thing. You don't have to answer that on this one because
or what is stop motion?
I figured I wouldn't have to answer that one on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we will probably bring up things that you've had to talk about many times, but, probably sucks more for you, but awesome for our listeners because you have so many amazing things that you've done, and it's been really exciting watching you.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. I mean, it was never something that I thought, like if you asked me when I was a kid what I wanted to be when I grew up, I never would have said this, but now doing this, I'm like, this was what I should have always aspired to do. I just didn't know you could do it when I was a kid.
Better late than never, I always say.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So you were born and grew up in Canada.
Yep, Calgary, Alberta.
You stole our hockey team.
Yeah, we did. We stole the Atlanta Flames.
Yeah,
and I actually grew up an Edmonton Oilers fan. I was kind of the black sheep of the family, and so I like the Calgary Flames now, though. I went up there for the Stanley Cup Finals back in 03-04, and that was like one of the coolest things that I've ever done.
That's
going
awesome.
To see a Stanley Cup Finals game.
Yeah, Atlanta can't seem to keep an NHL team to save them.
Yeah, why is that?
I don't think we have the fan base here that's just diehard NHL fans. Because, we had the Thrashers a while back, too, and we lost them, so...
I blame it on the weather. We don't have the weather here. I mean, I was in shorts yesterday.
That is nice.
How's it up there?
No, it is not nice. I want snow. I want Canada. I want winter.
Well, it's nice here in Boise. I mean, there was a little frost that I had to scrape off the windshield this morning, but it's still golf season for me. Like, I can still go out and go golfing during the day if I go later on in the day. But it's starting to cool off a little bit. So we don't get the snow like we did in Canada, though. I miss that.
Well, I'm starting to forget what snow is. I'm from Connecticut, so I'm used to real winters.
Yeah, you experienced some real winters there.
Definitely, yeah, I miss it. I mean, just curious, how did you make the move to Idaho?
So
other than playing,
I was a terrible student all through junior high and high school, and I didn't go to a lot of classes and just kind of took the bare minimum to get by because I knew school wasn't really for me. So the only schools that would accept me were schools in the United States. So I didn't have an advanced diploma is what they call it in Canada. So I couldn't really get into any decent schools in Canada. So I had to come down to the States because there's so many schools down here. So they'll take people like myself, which was surprising to me. And so I kind of went down here just because that's where I got accepted to school. And then I ended up marrying a girl from here, from Idaho Falls. And then we moved to Boise, and that's where we live now. We've lived here for like 16 years. We love it.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I saw some of the pictures and from up there, and it's a beautiful part of the country.
Yeah, we've tried keeping it a secret that Boise is a great place just because there's so many people moving in here now, and it's changing. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I love it, but when I talk how great it is, then I'm inviting more people to come, and so maybe I'll just cap it at it is a great place to live.
We'll just edit that part out. People don't need to know.
yeah. Don't tell anybody.
We'll move there, but we'll edit that part out.
Yeah, actually, this place is terrible. Should I just start saying the bad things about Boise?
Absolutely, sure.
Don't move to Boise. This place is the worst.
That's what I heard. It sucks. No offense, but yeah.
Yeah, stay away. The weather's brutal. It's not even good golf weather in December. That's not true. I can't lie.
So you've had a passion wanting to make videos even before, I guess, when you had a regular job and you just started making some YouTube videos. What kind of videos were you making at first?
I made rap videos. We did something called Freestyle Friday. Mm-hmm. I always liked rap music. It was a big influence on my life, and so I just started writing rhymes, and then like I would put the videos on YouTube so that I could get them onto Facebook, and this was like early YouTube, and then people just started kind of coming into the actual comment sections that people I didn't even know, and the word kind of got out. And it's not that I was really good at it. I think it was just something creative and something that people thought was funny. And I did that for like 3 years, and then it kind of made it so that I wanted to learn more about film and do things like that. I'd always kind of maybe wanted to be an actor one day or do something along those lines, but I just never did for whatever reason. And so this was kind of my thing that I filled that void with. And then from there, it kind of stemmed to, hey, I think I do want to do some stuff with film. So I reached out to people that were doing that, and they told me that I needed to go to VidCon, which is in Anaheim, California every year, and it's a big video convention for online creators like myself. And then I just kind of met people that were doing really cool things, and I was like, this is crazy. You can actually make a living doing things that you are passionate about. And so kind of opened up my eyes to the opportunities that are out there, and now here I am 2.5 years into being a full-time stop motion animator where I make brick films predominantly. I mean, I've done some other things, but yeah, it's predominantly brick films, and like I've become an adult fan of Lego, and I know it sounds kind of nerdy, but I'm okay with that.
Well, you're talking to nerds, and so we accept the nerd way of life.
Nerd safe zone.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, is it's kind of become like it's not uncool to be nerdy anymore. Like everybody kind of finds their own clan, if you will, and that's the great thing about the internet, is it's kind of opened up doors. I mean, there's negative things about it too, where like with the online bullying and things that happen, but I mean, bullying has happened for forever, and whether it's online or offline. So I mean, that's just something that people are going to have to figure out how to deal with. And but it's cool that you can find people that are like-minded now that you couldn't have, and even if it's like across the world. Like I've made friends in places that I never even anticipated visiting in my life, and it's just kind of been all through the internet. So it's pretty cool, the things that come from it. There's good and bad.
Yeah, agreed. And the brick filming community is such a warm wonderful community where people love to help each other. And like you said, speaking to people all over the world and connecting with them and working with them is such an amazing experience.
Yeah, it really is.
I do want to touch on, since you were talking about the rap, your farm boy flow.
That was a full blown video produced and all that, and it was funny,
fantastic,
very well produced, great rap.
Yeah, it was.
Great,
I mean, I loved
funny.
it so much.
Loved the cats, the sheep,
everything. I mean, your whole family was involved, and it was just so much fun to watch. And you sounded great. I mean, I'd take you as a rapper, you know.
So, well, a funny story about that. There was a guy that I met in Boise who I had kind of produce a beat for me, but it didn't really sound very good. And so I was like, I don't know what to do here. Like, this is what I want to do now. Like, I thought that's what I wanted to do. I thought I was going to like make rap videos and put them, like, I thought that was how I was going to make a living, which isn't how I've ever made a living. But, through VidCon, I met somebody named Brendan, by the way. He used to make music the music for Devin Supertramp videos.
Oh, wow.
Scott and Brendo, and we kind of became friends the first year I was there. And so I was kind of in crisis. I was like, dude, I don't know what to do. I've got this beat. I've spent money on it, like, but it's not what I want. And so he produced that for me, and that guy charges a lot of money to do what he does. He has like a giant studio in Utah, and like he's a legit producer, and he just kind of became my friend just from going to this conference. I actually was just down in Utah for Utah Jazz game, and I hung out with him for a couple days, and I hadn't seen him in a while, so it was really cool to reconnect. So it's funny that you bring that up, because his wife was actually the person who kind of did the hook where she's the singer and she's got.
I wondered who did that. Yeah,
that wasn't
really
your daughter.
No, it was his wife. And then we had my cousin's daughter was the one who was kind of like looking like she was the one singing it.
So it was your cousin's
but
daughter.
It was actually his wife. We called her Flo Mingo was her rap name.
Funny. So
and yeah, she's amazing, and they just had 2 twin babies, and I got to hang out with them, and I haven't held a baby in a long time, so that was kind of fun to be able to cradle a baby and kind of satiate that that I miss from holding my kids when they were little. But that makes it so that I don't have to have more kids, because I can just hold a baby for like 10 minutes and then I'll be good.
So was that their farm?
No, that was actually my dad grew up in southern Alberta, and so that was his farm. And then when the place where we filmed the kittens was like my cousin's farm, so they all kind of have land down in southern Alberta, kind of by Waterton National Park, right on the Canadian side of Glacier National Park. So it's a really beautiful country, and that was where we filmed a lot of it. And then we filmed a little bit of it in Idaho. The sheep stuff was filmed in Idaho. Nice. I have a buddy who's a sheep farmer here, and so it was kind of just a mix of all these farm people that I know. I wanted to make sort of a gangster rap about farming.
Super awesome.
Yeah, it made me want to live there. I mean, it looked like so much fun. You could see the kids having fun, and it was just adorable.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, looking back on it, I'm like, that's where I grew up in the city, but we would always go down to my cousin's house to visit, because it's just kind of wide open space, and you can do whatever and get into trouble, and no one ever finds out. And so that's one of the things I miss about those days.
So a little after that point of making that video, you got the stop motion bug, where you started making some stop motion videos, some with, I think, Hot Wheels, some wrestling action figures, and then also Lego. What kind of inspired you to get into stop motion, just in general, and stop motion with Lego?
Well, I always liked that show, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. That always fascinated me. I think what really pushed me, though, to become really fascinated with stop animation was, I don't remember what year it was, but they had to put, The Guardian had probably a studio make all of these brick films for the World Cup, because they couldn't show the replays of the World Cup on YouTube, so they had to have somebody create brick films of the soccer games. And so I remember watching all of the replays in Lego form, and I was just fascinated by it. I was like, this is so cool. I love this. But I didn't own any Lego at the time, so it was never something that I thought I would do. I just thought it was really cool. But the stop motion element of it, I was like, I wonder how I could do that. I'd always, you know, liked kind of messing around and trying to figure things out. And so that was kind of how I fell into that. I think what stemmed it was Rudolph. And then, I mean, there's so many things that kind of led me to where I'm at now, but that was probably one of the major ones was seeing the World Cup replays done in brick form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are really good, and the set builds of the stadiums for the Guardian videos. I think it's Brick Sports, maybe. It's just incredible set builds for those. They're
Yeah,
like your set
they
builds
were
for your
amazing.
stadium.
I thought they were so cool.
Yeah, yeah. Where we found a lot of some of your oldest brick films, because they're real hard to find. A lot of them are still on the Vine account. And we found a whole bunch there that were really cool. There's one with a motorboat that was just really
Yeah,
awesome.
I loved all of the water ones. They were really cool.
The Bob Ross one was awesome, and then she
I'm
was
a
mentioning the Ric
huge-
Flair pool and the bowling ones. Those
Yeah,
were
they
really
were.
cool.
Yeah, I'm a huge Bob Ross fan. I used to watch him all the time, and I miss him. And they were so well done.
But I guess at one point you made a Breaking Bad video, if I understand correctly. And what happened with that?
So I just kind of posted it on Instagram. This was when I didn't really have any followers on Instagram, and I don't know how they found it, but Daniel Moncada, one of the assassins that worked for the cartel, that's what he played in the show. Him and his cousin found it, the two Moncadas, and they started sharing it on their accounts, and they had way bigger accounts than I did. And so I woke up to it and I was kind of like, what is going on here? Why am I getting all these notifications? Because I was just like, a regular dude that just did those kind of things for fun, never thinking that it would amount to anything. And then that kind of changed the whole trajectory of this, where I was like, he encouraged me to keep making them. He's like, these are amazing. You have to keep doing this. And they really weren't that good. Like, I was just making them on Vine. And it wasn't even a stop motion app. I was like having to kind of throw in little sounds so it would make it look like they were talking. And like looking back on it, they're like really crappy videos. But for whatever reason, they thought they were awesome and they encouraged me to keep making them. And then so I kept making Breaking Bad videos kind of whenever I would feel like it, whenever I'd get that kind of creative bug that I would just make a video. And then once that show ends, when I switched to sports, and then that kind of changed my life even more, where I had never experienced like actual virality until I switched to sports. And then that kind of just put me on the map. And yeah, that was just a whole other thing where it just kind of, I was like, this can't be real life.
It just really, we've really noticed how much you've improved over the years, like from Vine. Have you just self-taught, looking at tutorials?
I honestly, I haven't even really looked at a lot of tutorials. It's just a lot of it's been trial and error. And I mean, with our cell phones now, everybody always asks me that. They're like, what's the best app? What should I get if my kids are wanting to get into stop motion? And I'm like, well, if you want to spend the money, like Dragon Frame is what the pros use, but I'm like, you can use whatever you want. Like, you have a cell phone, you could just use that. That was what I used for the first like 2 years that I did stop motion, was a cell phone. And that's I think my biggest viral video to date was probably filmed on a cell phone. And so it's just kind of like you just use whatever you have. But there's a lot of constraints that come with working with Lego as well. And that can help you become creative, even with stop motion. Like, constraints are a good thing, and they're not necessarily a bad thing. That's kind of what we think of when we think, oh, it's limiting, but it's really not. It kind of opens up another door where you're like, how do I make this work?
The creative mind can always make things work. Where there's a will, there's a way, right?
That's right. And I mean, everybody has a creative mind. Some people will say they're not creative, but creative isn't something that you are. Like, it's something you do. So we all create every day, and so it's just something. It becomes repetitious. It becomes just like drinking a cup of coffee every morning. It's a habit that you start forming, and that helps. I mean, yeah, some people are more creative than others, but those are usually the people that work in the creative space, and that's what they're always doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's true. And just before I forget, because you have so many amazing Vine videos, you really should put them together and like put them on Instagram, share them on Twitter. They're worth sharing. They're really good.
I should. I haven't even gotten on Vine. I don't even know how to get back on Vine.
I'll share
Like,
a
I don't
link
know
with
how you guys found them.
Yeah, well, I think I found them through your Twitter because you tweeted a Vine post. Now, and Vine's not functional like it used to be, so it won't even tell you how many loops you have total. You have to kind of count per video, and it's just more of an archive now, but there's some good stuff there.
Yeah, there really is.
I'll have to check. I'll have to figure it out.
Yeah. I don't know if you still have the original files because I don't know if you could pull the files back off of Vine. But
yeah, I'm not sure. I may have them somewhere. Yeah. I'd have to go through old phones and see if I could find them.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that you have a real good magic for is with this, doing stop motion is you really have a feel for sports. You know your sports. You love sports. You can tell you love sports, and it shows in your videos. Do you have a favorite sport to watch?
I would say college football is probably my favorite sport to watch right now. I really love hockey. I grew up playing hockey, and that's something that I still play to this day. And but I never played football.
Okay.
I was always the skinny kid that, got cut from the football team, and they didn't even give me a chance. Like, I had to play rugby, which is crazy because rugby's way more brutal than football. But they took everybody in rugby. They were just like, yeah, you're on the team if you tried out. But I would say college football right now is probably my favorite thing to watch, and that might have something to do with living in Boise and having such an awesome team that we've had for as long as I've been here. We've just been spoiled with great football. But yeah, college football, I would say, is number one, followed by hockey is number two, and then maybe golf.
Okay. And do you have a favorite sport that you've played?
I would say, hockey is my favorite sport I've played, but I'm getting more into golf now just because I'm getting older.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I've always loved golf. I've never really been very good at it, but I'm getting better with old age, which is weird.
Patience.
Patience, right?
Yeah, you'd think that. It just teaches you so much. Golf is probably my favorite sport to play now.
How long has it been since you've played hockey?
Actually, I do color commentating for the minor league team that they have, the Idaho Steelheads. So I've worked for that team ever since I've lived here, and over the past 5 years, I've gotten into color commentating, where I'm just kind of the guy in between the benches that they send it down to, and I'm just kind of there for comic relief and kind of talking about the game and explaining it in a way that people can understand.
And that's on TV in the local Boise area?
Yeah, and then it's on like ECHL TV or ECHL.TV. Like, parents of the players are usually the only people watching it that aren't actually affiliated with the team. Okay. And then it's on the radio here as well. So it's something that I didn't know that I would like doing as much as I do, but I love it. It's one of my favorite things to do.
You seem like you have the personality that you could actually make that a career of being a
yeah, you're so comfortable
in front of the camera, and you know your sports.
You really have the personality for it. I'm surprised somebody hasn't snatched you up just to become one of their hosts with them.
Announcers,
yeah.
That would be fun. I don't know if I would like to travel as much, though.
Yeah,
that's one of the things where I'd be like, I don't want to be on the road that much. I like going new places, but I don't. If I could take my family with me on the road to hockey games, then yeah, that might be something that I would do. I'd be like, can you guys fly my whole family to this game?
Well, that would be
Well, you never know. They just might one day. You never know.
That would be cool.
Do like John Madden, get the bus going around everywhere.
I guess we could do that. If I was as fancy as John Madden, I would totally do that. I'd be like, well, we're gonna buy a bus, and that's where we're gonna live.
That would be fun.
Cool. Kind of go back to some of your older things. you did a Payne Stewart video back in 2016, and I guess you have a relationship with the Golf Channel. Can you tell us about why you made the Payne Stewart video and any relationship that with the Golf Channel or other golfing things that have led you to creating golf brick films?
So the Payne Stewart one. So what? Kind of going back to what started it up, like what kind of blew it up. I referenced a viral video that I made. I made it on my phone. That was a Tiger Woods video at the Masters. So that one was the one that really put me on the map. And then from there, big companies started reaching out, like the Big Ten Network. Pinehurst Resort was one of the places where they played the 2014 U.S. Open. And that's where that moment happened, the Payne Stewart moment, where he beat Phil Mickelson on Father's Day. And so they wanted me to recreate that one. This was before I knew that I could make money doing this. Like Pinehurst was the first place that reached out, and I was like, yeah, this is awesome. And I had actually been to Pinehurst for the U.S. Open in 2014. So I just thought it was so cool that a couple of years later they're asking me to do a video for them. And so we just worked out a trade deal where I just got to go golfing at Pinehurst and I got to take my cousin with me. And so I made that video just so that I could go golfing there. And then after that, my wife was like, if you're going to keep doing this, you probably need to make money doing this. And so that's when I was like, well, I don't even know what to charge. And so I kind of had to figure that out really fast. And I'm still in the process of figuring out what I'm worth. I really don't know. I just, keep upping my rates and people keep paying it. And the more views that I get, the more value it brings to them. And so I don't know. That's kind of where that came from. The Golf Channel was one that came a little later. And it was probably from the Payne Stewart one. I'm sure they saw that one too. And so they reached out to me, and they were actually the ones where, because I was making these just on the side, like with the Big Ten Network, I had to make like a football video every week, and I just wasn't sleeping. So when the Golf Channel reached out, and they offered me enough money that I could actually quit my day job, that was kind of where that relationship started. And then more recently, I just did some stuff with the PGA Tour. So I'm actually working with the tour now to do stuff, and that's been pretty cool. And we did stuff around the President's Cup and did a Tiger Woods video that actually went all over the internet. And so anything I do related with Tiger seems to just do so well. But yeah, it's just kind of been a step-by-step process that's gotten me. It's sort of a broken road that's led me to where I'm at, and that was where it all started, though, was Pinehurst Resort. And so it's cool to be able to go golfing there. And that's, for people that don't know, Pinehurst is like a really fancy golf. I mean, they have like 9 golf courses there, and it's in like a tiny town in North Carolina. And so it's sort of mecca for a lot of golfers. So that was kind of a bucket list item. I remember leaving the U.S. Open in 2014 and telling my friend, I was like, I'm going to go golfing on this course one day, and I don't know how I'm going to do it. So I don't know if that was something that I manifested, and then all of a sudden I had forgot that I'd even said that. And then when I was back there, I was like, dude, I remember saying that I was going to golf here someday. So maybe I need to start manifesting more things.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely. That's cool.
super
We're
awesome.
going to win the lottery one day. So
Yeah.
so then we'll meet you there.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be rad. If you guys win the lottery, we are going to Pinehurst for sure.
Definitely.
Or when you win the lottery. Is that how
Yeah,
manifesting?
when we win the lottery, yeah.
So the first golf videos opened up some big doors with you over at the Big Ten Network, and they asked you to make a series of videos. How many videos?
I think it was 10.
That's funny.
And I honestly, and I apologize, I only found like 3 or 4 of them. Are all of them online? And where can we find these?
I think all of them are on my Instagram. If you go deep enough in my Instagram, it was 9 or 10 videos. I don't remember
Okay.
the specific number, but they would put them on Facebook. They would put them on Instagram, and like if you go on the Big Ten Network, you'd have to like go through a lot of their feed to find it. Mm-hmm. But if you go on mine, I think they're pretty you should be able to find most of them. But some of them were like, it was like Iowa versus like Purdue, like in 1989. So it's like, it's videos that nobody cares about really, but it was, that was something that I had to do because we had to kind of represent all of the different teams in the Big Ten network. And so definitely the ones like the Michigan one and the marching band for Ohio State were probably the two videos that did the best, just because that's what more people care about than Purdue versus Iowa. No offense to anybody from Purdue or Iowa, but you're not as fancy as Ohio State or Michigan. I'm sure they know that.
Now, is that when you first started working with Oyo minifigures?
That was just for that project, right?
So that was one of the things. Originally, they wanted to work. They just wanted me to make them in Lego. So I made the Michigan State botched punt video in Lego, and then they were talking with Lego, and then they also started talking with Oyo, and Oyo was licensed with the NCAA. And so I think once Lego kind of caught wind of what they were wanting to do, they're like, well, we don't really want to be involved in it. You're going to have to use Oyo. And so that was when I started using Oyo, but I didn't know anything about Oyo before then. And so I was kind of like, this isn't Lego. Like, this is a lot different to animate with, which you guys obviously know.
Right.
But so I made that Michigan State one, and it was already done. And so I was like, well, I have this video that I just spent like 50 hours making. I'm like, can I just put it out on my own Instagram? And they were like, yeah, sure. So I put that out, and that one went viral as well, which I knew it would, because that was a moment that I wanted to recreate. And it was just a kind of a crazy play that happened. And it was in Lego, which everybody loves. And so that was the first time I ever got interviewed on SportsCenter, was because of that video. And I think the Big Ten Network was probably like, oh, maybe we should have stuck with the Lego. And then so I made them with Oyo, and you guys know this better than anybody, but they articulate different. So it's a lot hard. It was harder for me to make the videos with Oyo than it would have been with Lego. And it gave me more constraints, but that was one of those things that we talked about earlier. The constraints aren't necessarily a bad thing. And then I ended up doing some more stuff. I developed a relationship with Oyo and did some more stuff with them. I did some stuff with the NHL Network. And for using them for hockey videos, I actually like Oyo quite a bit. But for football videos, I didn't like it as much as I do Lego. And so I've kind of gone back to making the Lego version. And I don't know if Oyo actually is out of business now.
I think they still might be making baseball. There might be some NCAA stuff. I don't think they have the NHL contract. I don't think they have football. They don't have soccer. They might, but yeah, they're staying alive, but barely.
Yeah, and you still see their products in the stores here and there too.
Yeah, like Barnes and Noble has some stuff.
I love the NHL stuff that they do, and I have a bunch of NHL Oyo product that I'm like, I should make more of these videos, but now it's like, this is my job, and I'm like, if I'm not getting paid for it, or I don't think it's going to get a ton of attention, I'm probably not going to do it. And the NHL stuff just doesn't get the attention that like college football does, and the PGA Tour and things like that, and even US Open, like the tennis stuff. I'd never done tennis stuff, and I wasn't a huge fan of tennis, but my mom was a big fan of tennis, and so I did that so that I could take her to the US Open, because that was part of the deal. And that was just like, for her, that was like one of the coolest experiences she's ever had. And for me to be able to see that made it a cool experience for me. I didn't care too much about the tennis, but now I'm actually more into tennis now that I've gone to the US Open. That was a really cool thing, and those guys were so amazing to work with. Like that whole team was just awesome. And that's actually who put me in contact with the PGA Tour, was the US Open. So it's just kind of weird how it all kind of goes together, and everybody, it's sort of a small world in that SMS sports world where it seems like everybody knows each other.
Yeah, that was a great interview, and you were definitely also comfortable together, and it almost sounded like you got another thing set for next year. And
I hope so.
really cool that your mom was there. I thought they were going to show her because they kept looking over and talking about her. But it was
Yeah,
it was sweet.
I thought they were too. I was kind of hoping that they would invite her up on the set when I mentioned that she was there, but they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
They could have at least showed her face. Look, proud mom there. It's like,
I know.
Next time then.
That's right.
Add that into the to the deal. Got to show my mom.
Kind of running back into your Big Ten, but it goes through all your videos. If you've done a lot of alterations to your Lego and painting on them,
cutting them,
cutting on them, making cornrows, doing your jerseys and things like that. One of the things that I really did enjoy is I think it was your tuba player, your sousaphone player. I think it was in the Ohio State one, the band.
Yeah.
That was cool. How long did it take to make that a modified minifigure?
I don't even remember. That was something where I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but there's no such thing as a Lego sousaphone. So I was like, how can I do this? I looked up a couple things on the internet, but it didn't really have anything that looked like what I wanted it to look like. So I just kind of pieced things together, and it was a lot of trial and error, and then I just spray painted it silver, and that was how I made a couple of sousaphones actually, just in case I needed a backup one. That's typically what I'll do. But yeah, I just kind of, sometimes I'll melt pieces, sometimes I'll, like I did some stuff for the British Open in golf, and the claret jug, I had to kind of like melt one piece so that it would kind of look like the claret jug. And it's just, I love using Lego, but I sometimes have to kind of alter what I want it to look like, because those tiny little details I know are going to be something that resonate with a lot of people. And so I have to put those in as little Easter eggs.
Mm-hmm. I saw one video you were cutting the feet off of a Lego. Was it just to replace it with a different color feet, or what?
So no, that was Jean Van de Velde, where he takes his shoes off to go get down into like the water to try and hit a golf ball out of the water that's kind of like part in the water and part out of the water, but then he decides not to. So I had to cut his legs off so that it looked like his shoes were sitting right next to him.
Okay.
And then once he gets into the water, I just kind of built up the water around him. But yeah, things like that, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Even with the Tiger Woods one that I just did, they wanted me to do it with him using two hands on the club, and usually I only have him use one hand on the club. And so I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make it look like he's using two hands with Lego, because they really don't articulate the way that you'd like them to so that they can hold that club. So that was a lot of trial and error too. But I love the way that it looked, and now I'll probably only use two hands on the club when I'm doing golf videos, because I'm just like, oh, that looks so much better.
Oh yeah, it definitely looked a lot better. That Tiger one, you nailed that one. It looked.
And I was worried about that one. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do that, but that's one of those things where those constraints, just you have to figure it out and use putty and kind of disguise it from the camera, and the angle, you work on the angles, and even like getting the lighting involved where you're not going to be able to see the putty. And because I don't do stuff in post-production where I take stuff out. I probably should do that. I should learn how to do that. I just haven't. So now I'm kind of probably going to have to farm that out to other people who understand After Effects and Photoshop and things that I don't. And I don't necessarily want to learn how to do that, just because I don't want to be jack of all trades, master of none, and spread myself thin.
And but your out of socket work is really amazing. Like with the crowds clapping and everything, it really looks amazing.
That's been something over time that I've just kind of had to figure out what looks the best, and that's, like I said, a lot of trial and error as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to say too, because for someone that was doing the sports videos and stuff, having the crowds and to move all of the people in the crowd, I mean, it's just like you just grit your teeth, because you're like, oh my gosh, it takes so much time and patience to move every single one of those people.
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this?
But the finished product is just so beautiful. And
it's like you have to do it because it looks so cool, but like sometimes it'll take like an entire day of filming to get like 8 frames, and you're like, I just spent an entire day to get 8 like one, not even a second of video. It's just nuts that I do that, but it just looks so cool once it's done that I'm like, I have to do that.
It does, and these people that are asking, like, how did you do it and how long did it take? And you're just like, you have no idea.
Yeah, you guys have a really good idea of how long it takes. It takes forever.
I purposely didn't try to move all the people out in my stands. I'd move so many of them, and I would move the camera as much as possible, because when the camera's moving, everything's moving. So
yeah, I've started doing those little tricks too, even in post, where I'm like, where I'll kind of zoom in a little bit, like with the NASCAR stuff that I did. There's this one scene where Dale Earnhardt Jr. is like driving in, and there's just like thousands of people, and I'm like, there's no way I'm moving all these people. You know, you're on time constraints where you're like, I can't move all those people, and so I would just kind of zoom in after the fact, do like a slight zoom. So yeah, that's smart to move the camera around. There's little hacks that you kind of have to learn and teach yourself. But
yeah, that's the problem. If you're on a time constraint, you really just can't do that. You don't have the time for it. So it really just depends how much time you have to work on it. It's like, okay, well, if I only have this amount of time, then I really have to cut those kind of things out.
Yeah, totally.
Speaking about Photoshop skills and whatever, how were you making your decals for your jerseys? Were you doing that in some sort of paint program?
So that's my cousin's wife. She was there when it all kind of, they used to live in Boise. They live in St. George, Utah now. But she was at our place when all of this kind of, when the Tiger Woods one went viral, and then like Bleacher Report's reaching out and they're like, hey, can you do NBA Finals stuff? And I'm like, sure. But I was like, I have to get jerseys. I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. And she had a little bit of experience in some graphic design stuff. And I'm not sure what program she used. It might have been Illustrator, or it wasn't Photoshop. It might have just been something, whatever it was that she kind of was familiar with. She's like, well, I could make jerseys if you want. And so she made the first batch of jerseys. Shout out Leslie Jacobs. She's amazing. And she didn't want anything for it. Like, I tried to pay her, and she's like, no, I'll just make them. And I was like, and this was before I was making really good money doing it. So I really didn't have money to pay her, but I was like, I've got to give you something. So she's kind of done that over the years for me. Like, she makes all my jerseys now, and so she's going to be getting a big Christmas bonus this year.
Nice.
Sweet. Yeah, I've done some of the I made some jerseys for some Atlanta United video I made, and then a Star Blazers video I made a few years back, and it's very time consuming work just to get the Photoshop done, and then you got to cut the stuff out and put them on your minifigures. How do you attach those to your minifigures?
So I just use double-sided tape, and then I'll print it. Like, I'll get all the jerseys printed. I'll use double-sided tape, and I'll just do it like in lines of it. And then I have to cut out each individual jersey, both front and back. And I mean, I've done it so many times now that I'm pretty proficient at it, but I should probably have somebody else do it for me. I just have a hard time letting certain things go, where I'm like, I kind of want to be involved in everything that I can so that I can get the end result that I want. Because if I have somebody else do it and they make mistakes on it, or it doesn't look kind of what I envisioned it looking like if they cut them out wrong or whatever, then I'm like, oh, now I have to do it myself. And so I just kind of do it myself. Sometimes if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. And I mean, otherwise I would have to pay more for them to do it. But I've kind of gotten to the point now where I am starting to let things go. I have a buddy, Matt Lincoln. He's a great master Lego builder, and so I'll pay him sometimes to like build certain parts of sets for me, and we're starting to collaborate on more stuff, and he just does amazing work, something that, like, with his builds where I'm like, dude, that would take me like 3 months to build that, you know, and he can just kind of do it in a couple weeks. So yeah, you know how that works with cutting those things out. They just take so long. But yeah, I just use double-sided tape and like a photo paper that I get from like Office Depot. They'll print the jerseys out for me, and it's just kind of that's my system now. I have recently done some stuff with a place called Bricks and Minifigs, They're based out of their corporate offices in Orem, Utah. And so I've kind of developed a relationship with them over the years. And so they're starting to do some more custom stuff where they like do the UV printing over the Lego. And so that's really cool. And that's kind of something but that's going to be really expensive if I start doing it that way. So I haven't decided if I'm going to start doing everything that way, or I mean, I guess I'll just have to put it into the budgets, and it'll depend on who's paying for the video.
Right.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. One of my favorite fun videos that you made, and it has just an incredible mock that you did, was the "I'm just here so I don't get fired."
Fine.
Fine, not fired.
Marshawn Lynch.
Marshawn Lynch, yeah, that video was hysterical. I think it was one of the first ones I might have seen that you did. And I was like, who is this guy? This is cool. But yeah, that was a funny video. And one of the things I've noticed that you do a lot, and no one hardly does, it's doing a head replacement for talking. Having your minifigures talk. I mean, I know Donald Faison did some for some Star Wars mini videos. He did 5 or 6 years ago or so. And another one of our Brick Filmers Guild members, Mini Life TV, did it for a little while. But no one pretty much does that much. And you're using the Lego heads to change them out, to make your mouth change. Is that something that you find very time consuming and difficult to do?
It's not too bad. I mean, at first it was really hard and difficult, but now it's kind of just become what I do if I'm going to make them talk. I didn't even know that Donald Faison made brick films until this Tiger Woods video. He commented on it.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
I was like, what? I was like, this guy made... And so I went and looked at some of his stuff, and I was like, this is so awesome that like a Hollywood actor is like commenting on my video, and that's what he does for his creative outlet. I think that's so cool. But yeah, I had no idea that he did those. Like, I'm not super plugged into like the brick film community. I just am so head down in doing what I'm doing that like I just kind of come up for air and go golfing whenever I'm done with the project.
Cool. Yeah, he's a super talented brick filmer. I mean, super talented actor. We've been watching him for years on different shows, but yeah, his brick films are just... And then, of course, he has the perfect voice acting cast. So, I mean, it's all just top-notch, amazing.
I think he learned a lot from the Robot Chicken guys.
Yeah, because he does a lot of work with them.
And one of my buddies actually worked, like a guy that I grew up with in high school, he actually worked with Robot Chicken for a while, and I think he's doing something with Stupid Buddy Films now. And I haven't seen him in over 20 years, but I need to, next time I'm down in LA, I need to go find him because I didn't know that he does stop motion.
Yeah, one of our past interviewees works for Stupid Buddy,
Sean Willits.
Sean Willits. And he's really talented. And yeah, I mean, he was telling us that Donald Faison came through their office once, and it was really kind of interesting.
And Forrest has worked with them as well. So yeah, no, it's a lot of talented people in the brick filming community.
But speaking about the minifigure head replacement, have you you might have mentioned this Minifigs Me products? They make these phonetic heads. Have you ever thought about using those?
No, I don't even know what that is.
I think they're a British company, and I'll send a link or whatever, but basically it's just a packet of heads, about 10 or 12 of them, that on the front it has a face, and on the back it actually says the letters that you would potentially be using.
Oh, really? Yeah, that would be awesome.
It's really interesting stuff. I've thought about it. I just haven't gone and purchased any of those from them. But
well, if it's English, you know it's really good.
But I was wondering, yeah, that might be something you might want to consider. Although you've seemed like you got a really good collection, and it's gotten better. The heads that you're using for replacement, it seems like you've got probably 24 of them of whatever yellow and the black color or the brown skin color, but you do a great job of those. But
yeah,
I'm wondering
really
if the phonetic heads would be an asset to you, since you're one of the few people that do it.
So one thing that I just had Bricks and Minifigs do for me is I'm working on a secret project for one of the big football games that happens in February, the football game. And so I had them print some custom heads for me. I had a graphic designer that wasn't my cousin's wife, Leslie, make for me. And so now I'm pretty excited about this. This is never something that I've done before. And there's also a guy that I might have work with me as well who can do that stuff in Photoshop, like after the fact. And so I'm going to kind of play with it. This is just like a personal project where it's not like being funded by anybody, but it's going to be a pretty big video, I think. And so I had Bricks and Minifigs print some custom faces for me, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We'll look forward
But
to
yeah,
seeing
I want to see, send me the link to that because I'd like to check that out, especially like phonetically what face to use for each vowel and things like that. I just go with the flow and use whatever I have at my disposal.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, where were we going to go?
I know we kind of jump around a lot.
Oh, we definitely jump around.
That's okay. I'm so ADD that I'm usually all over the place too.
You know, I'm starting to think that might be a superpower for brick filmers.
I think it is. I think you're right. I think for entrepreneurs in general,
I agree.
It seems to be like the common theme.
Yeah, definitely.
You can ask about that since I'm looking at it, the One Bite Pizza video.
Was that like a commercial you made? Dave Portnoy?
For Dave Portnoy? That was that was something that I did because I was going to New York. I had like a week. So I had finished all my US Open stuff, and then they were bringing me out for the US to watch the semifinals and the finals of the US Open. And so I was like, well, I'm going to be in New York for a few days. I was like, maybe I can make a One Bite pizza review video and tweet it at Dave Portnoy and see if he sees it. And so I did. And I just spent that week making that video and then tweeted it at him and didn't hear anything from him. Like, it was just kind of crickets for like 2 weeks. And I was like, I can't believe he didn't see that, because it got a little bit of traction on Twitter and on Instagram, and people loved it, and they were tagging him in it. But I was like, I guess he didn't see it because I didn't hear anything from him. And so I got back from New York, and like a week after I'd gotten back, all of a sudden my notifications lit up, and I was like, uh-oh, something's going on. And he had used it as his official pizza review, both on Instagram and Twitter. And I was just like, I can't believe that just happened. And so then I got like a whole bunch of new followers, and all the stoolies kind of were, those guys are like, some of the comments that they leave are just hilarious. I'm just like, these guys, like, they have some really funny people that are into Barstool. And that's something that I've just kind of become a fan of over the last year. I actually met Dave Portnoy at the Daytona 500 when I did this stuff for NASCAR. He was in the players meeting, the drivers meeting, sorry. And he was sitting next to Julian Edelman, and I didn't even recognize Julian Edelman, but I recognized Dave Portnoy. And so I went up and talked to him afterwards and took a picture with him. And then I talked to Julian Edelman a little bit too.
Oh, that's my team.
I was like, this is just crazy that I'm talking to like the Super Bowl MVP. But I was more excited to talk to Dave Portnoy than I was Julian Edelman. and JJ Watt was there, and there was just a bunch of celebrities that I'm in the same room with. And I'm like, I can't believe this is all from playing with Lego.
That is awesome. It was cute that you had a cameo fig of yourself in there.
Oh, yeah. So that's kind of one of the things where people are like, why don't you watermark your stuff when you do stuff for these big companies if they don't tag you in it? And I'm like, well, my watermark is just kind of my homeless-looking gold figure that kind of looks like me, looks like a caveman, and I just kind of had him like walk in the background so that I'm a part of a pizza review. That's kind of that's if I'm actually on an actual pizza review someday, then that's going to be another one of those things where I'm like, I can't believe this is actually happening, where I'm like reviewing pizza with Dave Portnoy.
And you must have had some awesome pizza in New York.
Oh yeah, it's amazing there. Like it's just crazy how good even like the places that aren't that great
are great.
Yeah. You mentioned you do a lot of stuff in camera where you don't do anything for the most part in post. Every time the ball is shot in basketball or golf, you're actually you've created a rig that either uses like monofilament string or something else I'll let you mention to make the ball fly in the air. Can you tell us about your your little rig you've made for doing balls in the air.
Yeah, I used to use fishing wire, but it was a little bit too thick. Like you could still see it pretty well. And so then I was like, well, I don't know how to remove this in post. And I know there's ways you can do it. I don't know if it's laziness or I just don't want to learn a new trick of the trade. And so I just kind of keep it in there. But I just pull out a long gray hair of mine and then I'll use that because it's super thin. And then I give the ball a little bit of motion as I'm taking the picture and open the exposure a little bit so that there's a little bit of motion blur as well. And that's kind of how I've figured out how to do that. It's just I think it kind of happened by accident with the motion blur. And I was like, oh, I like how that looks. And so I try to do that every time. But yeah, I mean, making the ball move is one of the hardest things that, I mean, over the years, I've kind of figured it out, but not having any experience in like Photoshop or After Effects or anything like that, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make it look like this is actually moving. So it was kind of another constraint thing. Going back to constraints, I was like, what can I use that I'm not going to be able to see? And the gray hair just kind of popped out of my head.
Use what tools you can. I'm a bit lazy. Right. I do all that bob movement in post. I couldn't be bothered with. I tried to do structures holding it up, rigs. But
I know,
you do a great job.
Yeah, huge respect for doing that all,
And question, the U.S. Open tennis, you did the ball that way there, on that one.
Yeah. So that one, awesome. I had like the 3/4 Arthur Ashe Stadium built, and so I would put a fishing wire across the whole stadium, and then I would hang the ball with like a piece of double-sided tape on one of my gray hairs, and then I just kind of tucked that into one of the little round pieces that I used for the ball. And it was actually a Oyo baseball that I used for the ball for the U.S. Open. I just spray painted it like fluorescent yellow, and that was what I used as the ball. And so anytime it's in the air, it's actually in the air, and so I had to kind of move that around so you couldn't see you can still see the gray hair if there's not motion blur. Yeah. So I have to get the motion blur. So I had like a little one of those air puffer things that you use for to clean out your camera. I just used that, like when I would take the picture, I would open it up so it's like a second long, where it takes a longer time to take the picture with the exposure, and then I would just kind of squeeze that little puffer thing so that it would move it like right at the end. And that was, I mean, it's painstakingly time consuming, but that's just kind of the style that it's funny how my style has just kind of evolved over the years, but people can tell that it's my work for some reason. Like people that I don't even know, they're like, is this GoldYeller? Yeah, and I'm like, how do people know that was me if it's something that I'm not tagged in? But I guess I kind of have a certain style, and I kind of do some of that on purpose, where I'm like, I want other like kids that don't have the savvy of doing stuff in Photoshop, but they can make that. Like I want my own kids to be like, you know what, I could do that, and I can do it just like he does it. And so, because I don't know if I'll make brick films for the rest of my life, it's probably something that I won't do for the rest of my life. But it's such a cool medium, and there's so many people that love it and that want to learn how to do it. And so I kind of like to keep it a little bit more elementary than getting too fancy with it. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of just how my style has evolved over the years. It may get to the point where I'm using like green screen someday and all that type of stuff, but not anytime soon.
Well, you did such a good job on that one. I thought you had switched your style and you went to post. It just your tennis ball in that one, it looked great. You had me fooled.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. I didn't know how I was going to do that. I was like, the ball's in the air so much on tennis videos. I have no idea how I'm going to figure this out. But and with the time constraints too, I was like, I got to figure this out quick. I can't do a lot of testing. I just kind of have to figure it out as I go, and it worked out really well. I loved how it turned out. Those tennis videos I mean, and they did so well. I was like, I didn't know there was this many tennis fans. I didn't think that they'd be like performing as well as they did. I think they aggregated like over 20 million views just across Facebook.
Wow.
I was like, this is crazy. Like, people just loved them, and now I'm a bigger tennis fan than I ever thought I would be.
And your interview you did that went on national TV and all that?
At the U.S. Open?
Yes, at the U.S. Open.
Yeah, I don't know where that went. I think it was all over the world. I think
cool.
I think there was some kind of feed too where that was like blasted all across whoever wanted to watch it. I think you could watch it online too. So that was a big boost as well, where I was like, you guys are having like Serena Williams and her like coach talk on this show, and now you've got me, and like all Kobe Bryant was on that show, and I'm just like, you guys want to talk to me? This is crazy.
Yeah, no, I think, and you need to keep your own style. I think it's awesome to have your own style that people recognize, and it works for you, and that your videos look amazing, and the post work that people do after, like what Dave and a lot of people do, that adds so much time to it as well. So even though it's kind of time constraints, you think you got to figure this out, you would add so much more time to be doing it in post.
Yeah,
so the fact that you're able to eliminate
that's
great. It's good to eliminate that.
Yeah, I try to do as much as I can in camera, just so that I don't have to do stuff in post.
Now, just curious, do you add a cameo of yourself? Do you put yourself in the crowds when you're doing those crowd scenes ever?
Sometimes. I probably need to do it more, just because it's kind of become the ongoing joke where it's this fancy dressed, like homeless looking minifigure that's kind of in the crowd, and people were asking that with the Barstool Sports one with the Dave Portnoy video. Mm-hmm. They're like, who's the homeless looking Jesus dude in the back? And I'm like, that's supposed to be me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Dave would do that with us sometimes. He'd put us both in the crowd, and I always thought it was so cute. I liked seeing it.
Yeah, those little Easter eggs, even if nobody else notices them, you notice them.
Yeah.
And so that's what makes it kind of more
special,
custom to you. Yeah, and special.
Yeah, I think I saw Mike Ditka in one of your Chicago Bears crowd.
Yeah, I definitely had Mike Ditka one in there.
Yeah, cool.
I'm glad that you noticed that, because most people didn't notice that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff in your videos and those Easter eggs I didn't notice because they go by real fast. I'd have to stop and go frame by frame. It's like, oh my gosh, it's the Easter Bunny, and he's probably in there.
Yeah.
One of the series you made earlier this year, or probably late last year, you did something for NASCAR, and I'm assuming, was this Fox or was it just NASCAR?
Yeah, it was for NASCAR.
Okay.
They actually had one of them though. It was Jeff Gordon and Mike Joy, mm-hmm. where they did the voiceover for it, mm-hmm. and then they showed that. But I think most of it was digital. I don't think they showed it on TV. But it was for kind of the lead up to the Daytona 500. And that was another thing too, where I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make Lego NASCAR cars. I was like, I have no idea how to make a track that kind of curves. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. This is going to be crazy. But I was like, this would be awesome. And I wasn't even like a huge NASCAR guy. I'd never really watched it. I mean, growing up in Canada, we're not really exposed to NASCAR. So that was something really cool that I never thought that I would do something just like tennis. I never thought I would do tennis, and then I was doing that. And so it's kind of opened up new doors too, where I'm like, you know what, I can do this. And it's almost like I'm giving myself permission to do things that I didn't think that I could do before, for whatever reason, whether it's like some kind of issue that I need to deal with in therapy or whatever. Yeah. But sometimes you just don't give yourself permission to do stuff because people tell you can't do that, and you just kind of get beat down by the world, and people are like, you can't do that. And it's like, why can't I do that? I mean, I can do whatever I want. And that's what I want to instill in my kids too, where I'm like, you can do whatever you want. You guys are so lucky that you have the internet. Like, if there's something that you want to do, just do it. Figure it out.
Well, I think the NASCAR ones might have been one of our favorites. The results were just brilliant. It just looked so good and so realistic. It must have looked like it would be a huge set, because just the fact that you're able to write out the words to, NASCAR Daytona in Lego, I mean, that takes up a lot of space right there to be able to get all the letters like you, and also in your other sports videos. I mean, it's just, it looks amazing.
Yeah, the NASCAR one took up the most space for sure. That one was huge. I had to film that actually in our living room, and I'd have to wait until it got dark to film, just so you're not getting flicker. So I filmed at night. My wife actually left with the kids for like 2 weeks to go stay at her mom's house, just so they were kind of out of the way, and then I would sleep during the day and film at night. But it was a giant. Like, it just took up so much space. I had like 3 Costco tables that were like all kind of put together, and
oh my goodness,
it was nuts. But I mean, I love how the cars turned out, like, and how the set turned out. It's just it was so cool. Those are one of my favorites too, which I never thought would have been, just because I'm not really a NASCAR guy, but yeah, I just love how they turned out, and I had to up my frame rate on that too, and figure that out, and how to work with that.
What was your frame rate on that one?
When it's the actual cars moving, I was shooting 24 frames per second.
Wow.
Okay, cool.
Which is a lot for anybody that doesn't know. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know, 24 frames per second is like typically what you see a regular video in. And so it's like, you have to take 24 pictures to get 1 second of video. So it takes a long time with shooting 24 frames per second. I'll usually shoot 8 to 12.
8 to 12, okay.
Yeah.
And when you're maybe some of the fast action shots of the NASCAR that weren't needing to be 24, did you shoot them 12 on the twos, 24 on the twos?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Some of those effects, like the cars that was spinning out and making the, I don't know what the term is.
Making the smoke, yeah.
Yeah, the smoke, and also the dirt ring around. I mean,
the tire skid marks on the
tile replacement.
Oh yeah, on Dale Earnhardt's. Yeah, that took a lot of planning beforehand to figure out how I was going to do that.
Yeah,
the burnout is what they call it.
Burnout, yeah.
It was so awesome.
And did you by chance get free tickets to a NASCAR race?
Yeah, so actually NASCAR hooked it up. They flew me out to Orlando, and then I drove into Daytona. They put me on like this awesome hotel, like right on the beach. And then when I went there, I had like these, they called them VVIP passes. So I was like a very, very important person. And there was a couple people in my group, and they had paid for those passes, like thousands and thousands of dollars.
Wow.
Just to do what I experienced. And I just thought that those guys were invited guests like me. And so I was like, oh, you guys had to pay for these? And they're like, yeah, we paid a lot of money for these.
Did you get a ride around the track by a driver?
Yeah, we did. Actually, Dale Earnhardt Jr. was one of the drivers. He wasn't our driver, but he was driving people around. It would have been cool if he would have been our driver, but it was crazy. Like, driving on those tracks, I was like, holy cow, this is so fast. And like, we just got to do so many cool things. We were in like the Rolex lounge, hanging out with all these fancy people. And even some people like recognized me there because they knew that I had done that work. And I don't know how they knew who I was, because usually I keep a low profile. I kind of like that about brick filming, is no one really knows who you are. And so you're not getting stopped in the streets. But yeah, there was a few people who actually recognized me and like came up, wanted to take pictures. It was just kind of a surreal thing.
Do you know how fast the car got up to?
It was fast. It was probably like 120 miles an hour or something. It wasn't like a NASCAR car. It was like one of those.
Was it a NASCAR car?
No, it wasn't. They just put, like, they take a few people around in it, and so it's just one of the, like, I think it was like a Camaro or something.
Okay, one of the IROC.
And I think there's a truck too that they'll have, but they said that it was going over 100 miles an hour. I don't remember exactly how fast, but when you go kind of on those turns, and you can kind of feel, it's almost like a G-force that you feel. It was nuts. I was like, this is crazy. I can't imagine doing this for 500 laps.
I got lucky once. I work in an industry that where I got to go down for one of all the Coca-Cola racers. They gave a lap a couple laps around the track for the people who won the contest for Coca-Cola. Well, I was just down there working, and I got to go around. I didn't get to go with any of the real racers, just some guy that worked the location. But they got our car, I think, up to either 160 or 170.
Oh yeah, we weren't going that fast.
That's fast. You feel like you're going around the first corner, and you feel like you could shoot off 100 feet into the air. It's insane. The G's you feel going.
So were you in one of the actual cars?
It was an actual NASCAR. I was in the passenger seat, and you hang on to like the car the best you can. And it was crazy.
That would be cool.
Yeah, it was fun. So yeah, hopefully they'll maybe give you another ride in one of the NASCARs, get you up to 160 or 170. Because it's awesome. Scary.
Now, do you have any pictures of your NASCAR set or any behind the scenes? I didn't see that.
I'm sure I do. Yeah, usually I put that stuff on Instagram, but I need to be better about like saving those stories. I just don't. Sometimes I'm like, I think I kind of have like an imposter syndrome, like where I'm like, nobody really cares to see this, but people do. Like I need to film more behind the scenes stuff and put it up on YouTube probably.
Yeah,
but you guys know how it is. Like once you're in filming and you're in that hyper focus mode, you're just like exhausted afterwards. Like it's like mentally draining that you have to be so focused on all these little details for such a long period of time. And I think you are right with it being like an ADD thing where that's our superpower. Like we're either like all over the place or it's like hyper focus.
Mm-hmm.
But something on that scale of just, it would be cool to see that set, just because it was so huge.
Yeah, I probably have some in my phone. I could probably send them to you.
That'd be cool.
Kind of going back to all these incredible interviews you've done. I mean, you've done with ESPN. I think you did something just recently with the Utah Jazz after a game, discussing your Utah Jazz commission video you made for them. Was there any certain interviews that were the most exciting for you to do?
I think probably the most, honestly, the one that I liked the most that probably didn't get very much attention was the NHL Network one that I did where they had me on for like 5 minutes. Like I even dressed up in like a suit and tie for that.
Uh-huh.
Like, I mean, I was wearing a sport coat and tie, but I wasn't like, I think I was wearing like shorts because they could only see me from like the waist up. But I was pretty excited about that one. The one that I think I was most excited about was when Sports Center had my daughter and I on like right before the day March Madness tips off. It was like the early morning one, and they had us on for like 5 minutes because I had made a video just for my daughter for her birthday of the Villanova buzzer beater over North Carolina, because I make my kids fill out a bracket so that they'll watch the NCAA tournament with me, because otherwise they don't care. And so she had Villanova in the final. I had North Carolina in the final. And then Villanova wins in that like unbelievable fashion. And so the next year I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to make her a recreation of that video. And then it ended up going viral. And then SportsCenter's like, hey, we want to interview you. And can your daughter come on? And she was 11 years old at the time. And I was like, I didn't want to tell her like how big of a deal it was. I didn't want to be like, there's going to be millions of people watching this. But my wife was filming it at the time on my phone, and I had all my notifications still turned on.
Oh.
And so as soon as we went on air, like it was just a line just streaming down my phone. So she couldn't see anything on the phone because it was just notifications going down the screen. And she's like, I didn't even know if you guys were in frame. She's like, I've never seen anything like that in my life. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of crazy when that happens. I'm like, I've probably never seen anything of what you saw, because it was just like all at once. And so that was pretty cool. That was a fun interview too.
Yeah, that was awesome. It was very heartwarming as a mom to see that. It was just very sweet, and I loved that and your daughter was so comfortable. She was she was great.
Yeah, and she had no idea like how big of a deal it was, and so I tried to keep it that way. I was like, oh yeah, I had to wake her up early. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning, and so we're both a little groggy, and but it was really fun. That was probably the one that I'll look back on and be like, I can't believe that actually happened to us.
And y'all had to get up pretty early for that, correct? I looked at the timestamp. It must have been at least 5:20 or 6:20 in the morning.
Yeah, it was super early.
Well, it didn't seem like it. You guys seemed very awake, and she was just very sweet and beautiful, and it was an awesome interview. Very cute.
Yeah, I think I was more nervous for her than I was for me. I was like, because you never know, like what's an 11-year-old gonna say on like national TV? And there was one question where they asked her where she was kind of like, I don't know. She didn't understand what he said. I think he asked like what kind of bond you and your dad have, and she was like, and so I kind of had to jump in and answer it, and I was like scrambling. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to answer this.
It seemed like there was one point where he said something about how to make your daughter feel, and it almost looked like she got a little choked up, and it's like, this was so sweet. My dad did this for me. It was really cool.
Yeah, it was sweet.
Yeah, it was really cool. Just thinking back on it and looking back on it, I'm like, that was such a cool moment that her and I shared, and the fact that she was on with me. Like, if it would have been me on, I mean, yeah, cool. It's like, how much can I talk about myself, you know what I mean, before it gets old? But to have, like, that connection. Same thing with the U.S. Open with my mom. Mm-hmm. Like, that was just such a cool moment, and to see her and kind of how like excited she was to be there, and it was amazing. That's something that her and I will never forget, and it's all just from like following a passion and doing what I love.
Well, that was a beautiful present you gave to both of them, so definitely something that will be special for the rest of your lives, and theirs too.
Well, for sure.
Now, do your kids? I know you have 3 kids, right? 2 daughters and a son.
Mm-hmm.
Are any of them, are they into the stop motion at all? Do they help you with that?
I had my 11-year-old, she made a couple stop motion videos. She made this one that was like this guy down in the basement he was like typing on his computer, and then the pipes exploded and like poo came raining down on his head. And so, and cause the person above like flushed the toilet, and then it like clogged up the toilet, and he's like, I don't remember exactly what. I think it's still on my Instagram. I'll have to go back and look and see if it's still up there. But that was one that her and I made together way back in the day. That was pretty cool. But she's made a few, and they've actually shown interest in making some more. And now that I'm in the studio, like I'll have my 13-year-old daughter come and help me. She helps with like builds and things like that. And so I can actually pay her money now, where it's like her little part-time job.
Nice.
And we saw your son got to tear down one of the, what was it, the golf
one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He loves tearing those down.
That's funny.
Speaking of after things are torn down, how do you sort your Lego?
Oh, that's the toughest thing for me to do. That's actually what my 13-year-old daughter does best, is she kind of like organizes it. She's not ADD like me. She's super organized and more of like a type A personality, where things have to be clean and not like chaos like what I live in. And so she'll come and help me, but I've kind of gotten a system down where I've got like I can actually afford to have places to put the Lego, and so I've got them sorted into different colors, and it's not a perfect system, and it's one that's constantly evolving. But that's another thing too, is sorting Lego is just crazy, like how long it takes and how time consuming it is. But you want to have certain colors together for bigger builds so that you don't have to go looking all over the place. The first year that I did this, I just had like a big bin of Lego that I would just have to like
good luck
sift through, and it took so much longer than it should have. And so I kind of was like, if I'm going to make a career out of this, I need to get some kind of a system in place. And it's still evolving, but it's a lot better than it was.
Yeah, your daughter sounds a lot like our daughter. She's not ADD, she's type A OCD.
Yeah.
Well, you had a big opportunity to happen because of all this. You got
this is my favorite story to talk about. I have so been looking forward to this. I got to say the 2 words, okay?
Uh-huh.
Bubble hockey.
Oh, are you guys Gary Vaynerchuk fans?
We're fans of this story. We're fans of him now.
You introduced us to him,
yeah.
So no, I had not heard of him before this, but I will have to look into his stuff.
This is like the best story ever.
Can you tell us about what happened with that?
So what happened there is I have a friend, Matt Frew. So Gary Vaynerchuk is like this big. For anybody that doesn't know who Gary V is, just look him up. It's Gary VEE on all his socials, and you can look up Gary Vaynerchuk on YouTube. And I had been following him for years, and he was kind of one of the guys that I'd looked up to and kind of gave me that permission to follow my passion and actually make a business out of what I love to do. And so he was in town, and my buddy Matt knew that I was a big fan of Gary. And it was like this private event that he was speaking at, and Matt had access to it. And so he was like, hey, do you want to be my guest? And I was like, absolutely. Because before I was like, dude, you got to like, I'll be like his Uber driver or something. I was like, I'll sign up for Uber if you can like hook it up where like I pick him up somehow. Because I just wanted to meet him because he was like somebody that I really looked up to. So anyway, Matt got me in to that event, and Gary always does a Q&A after he does his little keynote speeches. So I knew this was my time to kind of shoot my shot. And it's usually where people will like ask him like, how do I do this? Or how do I do that? Or how do I like monetize my YouTube channel or whatever? And he always he's not giving out new information, but usually in the Q&A stuff is where the best stuff comes out. But I didn't need anything from him. And I was like, he always gets asked for stuff. So I just want to thank him. And so I got up there and I was like, hey, I don't really have a question for you. I just wanted to thank you for giving me permission to do what I do. And I get to spend time with my family and make things. And then I knew he was super competitive. And so I was like, and if you ever want to play bubble hockey, I'll destroy you. Because he had a bubble hockey table in his office. And there was one down the street at actually the hockey team that I work for in Boise. There was one there, and I just figured best case scenario, he'll come down and play me in bubble hockey down there. But he had other plans. He thought that was funny. Everybody laughed, and his guy who videos him, D-Rock, he's like, D-Rock, are you filming this? Because he knew it was going to kind of air on his YouTube channel. And so he's like, first of all, where do you live? And I was like, I live here. Like, we can go down the street and play, and I go from like gratitude mode to competitive mode. And you can just kind of see that transition, where it looks like I'm almost about to cry. And then I'm like, I'll destroy you if you want to play. I just put on my competitive hat. And then he kind of thought that was funny. And so he's like, well, I tell you what I'm going to do. Because of what you said, I'm going to fly you to New York, and you're going to spend a day at VaynerMedia, and we'll play bubble hockey that day, and we'll see what. And so I was just kind of like, I can't believe that just happened. Like, my jaw just dropped.
Wow.
And so, like, 5 months later, they finally got me out there, and I ended up losing to him. But it was just cool to even spend, like, 5 minutes with him. And now I've kind of become friends with all the people around him. Like, he's got like a whole team that's around him. So when I was out there in New York for the U.S. Open, I hit them up and I was like, hey, what about a rematch with Gary? Because he told me after he beat me, he's like, are you guys going to stick around for a little bit? And I was like, yeah, we'll stick around. And he's like, okay, good. I'll come back and give you a rematch. But then he wasn't able to come back because he's just so busy and had something else come up. And so he still owes me a rematch. I have on video that he said that he was going to give me a rematch, so I'll have to dangle that in front of him at some point.
Of course, you only lost by 1 point, though, so...
Well, he went up like 3-0 right away, and I was like, this is going to end badly, and I'm going to look like a fool. But I was like, I got this, so I kind of got back into the game, and but he had to... I scored on myself twice, too, which is just like a rookie move. I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I was kind of nervous. Like meeting, like if you think of like the celebrity or like the person that you look up to the most, meeting them for the first time, and then you have to like play against them and try and beat them at something. It was a little overwhelming, but that was probably one of the coolest things that I've gotten to do from this. And I actually made a Lego video of him back when I wasn't very good at these with the replacement heads. And he thought that was super cool. I sent it to him before he had like millions and millions of followers on all his social media. I sent it to him, and then he started following me on Instagram, and I thought that was the coolest thing. He still follows me to this day, and I don't really talk to him that much in DMs just because he's so busy. But I did get to go hang out again in New York when I was out there. And so it's kind of like an open door to me now where I can just go hang out at VaynerMedia when I'm in town. I just hit them up, and whether Gary's there or not, it's kind of like you're cool by association now because you were invited. And it's just I just can't believe it. Like some of the friends that I've made from doing this, I'm like, I never would be friends with these people if I wasn't doing this.
Totally a surreal experience. And also he mentioned, and of course I noticed your Hartford Whalers hat because I grew up with the Hartford Whalers, so I loved that.
Here's an interesting fact about me is I've been to pretty much seen 3 NHL games, regular season games, not exhibition, with 6 different teams, but one of the teams in any of those games relocated cities. Atlanta was 2 of them, and Hartford was the other.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah,
that's my favorite logo in all of the NHL is the Hartford Whalers logo. It's like that logo design, I think, is just genius.
I remember going to the malls and going to the Whalers store, and that was the whole entrance door was the whale. I mean, it was just, I just remembered as if I'd been there yesterday.
That's one thing. I never got to see the Hartford Whalers play growing up. And that's a team that I would have liked to have seen. And I liked how they wore like those Cooperall pants that were like the one, it was just like, it was an entire pant that they wore, and them and the Minnesota North Stars and the Philadelphia Flyers were the only teams that wore those Cooperall pants. And that was just cool. And I have those Cooperall pants. Like I have the actual pads of them, but I don't have the pant shell to go over top of it. And that's what I want to find is a Hartford Whaler Cooperall pant that fits me.
Cool. Oh, that'd be awesome. Well, you
guys,
you all need to watch this bubble hockey video because it was so brilliantly edited and so much fun to watch.
Yeah, it really was. You even put a little section of stop motion in there with a unicorn.
That was so funny.
It was hilarious.
You just have to watch it.
And then your live action stuff where you're actually you kind of do a Macho Man impersonation. Yeah. And I want to kind of sidetrack off that Macho Man impersonation you did there because you actually did a brick film with Macho Man, and I guess it was Mean Gene Okerlund.
Yeah, and that was one that I did, and I sent to Gary as well because he was promoting his book, and I know Macho Man's like his favorite wrestler, and that was my favorite wrestler growing up, and so I just put Macho Man in there.
Yeah, I love the Macho Man, and I got to meet Mean Gene once working about 20 years ago, and I think he passed away this year, awesome. But it was the most interesting conversation. You know, we were talking about Ricky Steamboat and Jake the Snake Roberts and all these old wrestlers. It was really cool, and he was a really nice guy, at least when I met him. Didn't get to meet Macho Man, but I did get to meet Mean Gene.
That's so cool. Yeah, and I was a huge wrestling fan growing up. Actually in Calgary, that's where like Bret the Hitman Hart is from, and all of the Hart brothers, like Owen Hart and Bruce Hart. So those guys were like phys ed teachers in their off time. So like Bruce Hart and like Owen Hart, they came and taught like at our school, like phys ed. And then I was actually in a play in high school, and Stu Hart, the guy who started Stampede Wrestling and eventually sold it to the WWF, he sold it to Vince McMahon. That was kind of like the minor leagues of wrestling, where all of the superstars would go through Calgary, Alberta, and kind of go into their dungeon that they had, like this training facility that they had at their mansion. And so I got to meet Stu Hart, and he taught me how to take a fall because I had to get flipped over somebody's back. And so he showed me how to land like with my heels so that I didn't hurt myself. And it was just like, at the time I was just kind of like, oh yeah, this is cool. But like looking back on that, I'm like, Stu Hart actually taught me how to take a fall. Like I look back on that and I'm just like, that is so amazing. And I actually met Bret the Hitman Hart at the Stanley Cup Finals when I was there in Calgary. He was in our section, and Goldberg was there, and like all these wrestlers. Calgary is kind of like they have a connection with Calgary. And so it's just kind of funny that I used to watch Stampede Wrestling, and then WWF would come on right after that. So I'd watch like 3 hours of wrestling every Saturday when I was a kid.
Wow.
Atlanta sort of had its WCW connection too. So yeah, I get what you're coming from there.
No, but yeah, that is so cool to say that you like worked with these guys.
Did you ever get a chance to see Andre the Giant wrestle?
I didn't. No, we went to. My dad finally took me. He always would make fun of me. He'd be like, "This is fake. You know, this is fake." And I'm like, "Dad, it's not fake. They're actually hitting each other." You know, and so he finally caved and took me to an event, and Honky Tonk Man was there, but they weren't there. It wasn't there. Like, we didn't realize that it was a pay-per-view event.
Oh.
And so we went to, I think it was the Saddle Dome, and there was like a Metallica concert going on. And we're like, no, I thought we were supposed to. So it was at the place where they filmed Stampede Wrestling. So we went there, and we're like, this doesn't seem right. Like, but the tickets were expensive too.
Yeah.
And we were just like, this is for a pay-per-view event?
Yeah,
so we got in there, and we realized it was pay-per-view, and it wasn't real wrestling. We were just watching it on a screen, and so we're like,
that's
we
not
went,
cool.
we went and asked for our money back and ready to go. But that was like the closest I got to see live WWF, and that was something that I would have loved to have seen as a kid. I wish I would have went to Stampede Wrestling as a kid. I've heard now that like kids would go and try and sneak into Stampede Wrestling, and if Stu Hart would catch them, he would actually just let them come in. Like, cool. He was super cool about it. He was such a fan of wrestling. He wanted to grow wrestling, and so he wouldn't like punish them or like kick them out or like arrest them or anything. Like, the kids, if they got caught sneaking in, he was just kind of like, oh, good for you, come on in. So I wish I would have tried to sneak into Stampede Wrestling back in the day.
Yeah, well, that's too awesome to be taught how to take tumbles by a pro like that.
I know. I guess the only thing my only wrestling claim to fame is I got to see Sting's a copy of his driver's license because he bought a cell phone from where I used to work. I didn't even get to see him, but I got to see a copy of his driver's license.
That's close enough.
That's close. Oh, and I got to hug Don. Oh gosh, what was his name? Sutton. Don Sutton.
That's baseball.
Oh, well, never mind. But he was...
I was like, I don't remember a Don Sutton.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Was it King Kong Bundy? I met him. I was working a show where I had to put a lavalier microphone on him. And he was wearing one of his wrestling tights. So I had to like gaff tape it to his back. And I was the audio assist for that. So I'm sitting there listening to him in the green room going over his lines, and it was hysterical. It was like, he talked a lot like Hulk Hogan. Hey, brother, but he was a nice guy too. But a little, it was an interesting thing to get a microphone attached to him.
Yeah, most of those wrestlers that I've ever met have all been like super nice people, and they're kind of like hockey people too. Like any hockey player that I meet, they're always just such nice people, and it's probably because most of them are from Canada, but a lot of it I think has to do with the fact that they just love the game so much and they want that game to grow. So anybody who's interested in it, they'll like take time to actually talk to, and it's just super cool.
Yeah. Well, speaking of hockey, when it comes to an online viewership, some of our hockey videos are our most viewed ones. The hockey fans love Lego or Oyo stop motion a whole bunch, and we had a lot of success with those, whereas some of the other videos, just
the hockey
happening.
ones are my favorite. I just like the way they look.
Well, you guys do an amazing job at hockey videos. Like when I had to do stuff for NHL Network, your videos were some of the ones that I looked up and I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, oh, I can do this. And even with like the goalies, I don't know if that was you guys that I saw where you make the goalies' pads like go down into the butterfly position.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that I was like, how do I do that? I need to figure out how to do that because that looks
awesome.
Yeah, we broke the Oyos is what we did.
Yeah, so that was kind of what I used that technique and I was like, oh, this is really cool. I can make them, and it just makes it look so much better. But yeah, the hockey videos that you guys did were amazing. Like I can see why you'd be proud of those because those were so good.
Oh,
Thank
and
you.
they were real hard to do too. And there was like they also had like a thing on the hockey stick that would hold the puck, and I got permission for one of the videos to cut it off of, but all the rest of I wanted to kind of keep the authentic product in there. So I had to leave that little stud on the end of the hockey stick that would hold the puck. So
see, that's your problem is you ask permission. I never ask permission. I ask forgiveness.
Yeah, I'm just afraid I'm going to do something, and they're going to come back. It's like you got to do the whole thing over again. I'm like,
yeah, I guess you're right. And you guys worked directly with Oyo.
Directly.
The only time directly with them was through the Big Ten Network.
Yeah.
And I remember I popped the arms out of one of them and put in white arms. It was for a Michigan State one. And so it made it look more like what was actually happening. And I remember one of the guys was like, "This is Lego. You made these in Lego." And I was like, "What are you talking about? This is all done in Oyo. Like, this is your product. Like, you should know your product better than I do." So I just kind of chuckled when I guess it looked so real that they thought that it was made in Lego instead of in Oyo. And I don't know if it was like one of their high up people that just didn't know the product that well. It was just, I was like, "What do you mean this is Lego?" Like, I thought they were going to make me do it again. And I was like, "No, this is done in your product. That was kind of the deal. I wouldn't just try and sneak Lego arms in there."
We got kind of, it was one of our earlier ones, we kind of got busted putting a Lego in the back, and I thought I had him out of frame, but somehow he got back into frame because you know how chaotic football plays get.
Yeah, and they noticed
They noticed in the background. I was like, "Oops," because you know they gave us a lot of product, but you know, if you really, you know, you can have on any play of a football game, there's 22 guys out there plus refs and everybody on the sideline, so they're not going to give you everybody you need. And at the beginning of it, our first Oyo video, I think we did it with like 3 or 4 Oyos. It was
it's crazy. I remember one of the first videos I did, I would pop the Oyo arms out and I would put Lego arms in. It was like a Tom Brady video.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. I never actually pulled the arms off.
I wasn't working with Oyo at the time. Like, I just bought those Oyo. Like, they hadn't sent me anything.
Yeah. You had a bunch in the crowd. I hope they gave those to you.
Yeah, they sent me a bunch of them. So that was the thing with Big Ten Network is I think that was part of the reason why we went with Oyo was because Oyo was going to give us all the product. And I don't think Lego was going to give us anything.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, we could get a giant Lego budget. But I didn't really have much Lego at the time either. And so I was like, I don't know. But Oyo was just like anything I wanted. Even if Oyo would see that I was doing something in Lego, like an NBA Finals thing, once they got NBA, they would just like send them to me, like overnight them to me. And I'm like, well, I'm still making it with Lego though, guys. Like, I appreciate you guys sending this to me, but like I've never animated a basketball one with Oyo before, so I don't really want to add more time to what I'm doing. And you guys know how those legs kind of articulate differently, and you guys do such a good job, even with the football ones, where I'm like, man, what frame rate do you guys shoot in?
We're generally 15.
Oh, you do? See, you guys spend more time on it than I do. That's too many frames for me.
Well, we know some folks that are 24 and they don't do it on the 2s, and that's just crazy. Although I did a video the other day, I don't know if you saw it, I put it on my the Four Monkeys 2 Twitter, and it was of a motorcycle jumping a ramp, and I put both a 24 frame and a 15 frame version of it, and the 24 looks so much better. I just need to go back and erase all the supports to make it look cool, but right now it's just a motorcycle jumping from ramp to ramp, but it shows all this the rigs and supports holding the motorcycle while it's flying through the air. But very cool.
I got to go back and put my hockey claim to fame of getting Gordie Howe's autograph.
When he was in Hartford?
Yeah, when he was in Hartford at a golf tournament. But the embarrassing thing is I didn't know. I thought he was Bob Hope, and that was the only reason why I got his autograph. And I didn't know till like years later who he actually was. And I'm actually so happy that I have it now, but it was kind of funny at the time.
You're like, this is Gordie Howe.
I know. It's like I was like, that doesn't look like the signature. That doesn't read Bob Hope to me. And yeah, but I'm so happy now. I mean, you know, so it's a cool thing now, but it's a funny story.
So
I just pulled my phone out and I'm looking at that video right now with the 24 frames compared to 15 frames. And that's a huge difference. That looks so cool though. I love that little rig system. So do you just take that out in post? Or does it not? Can you not see it in camera?
You see the rig there in camera, and what I would have to do is I have to take a clean, I guess it's called clean plate or a clean picture. It has nothing on there, and then I'll go back. And I would normally have done this in After Effects, but I've been using HitFilm Express lately. And honestly, it's a free program, and it's nearly as good as After Effects and Premiere combined. I'm floored by it. I just started. because I'm actually going to drop my subscription to the Adobe Cloud because of it, because I can at least make videos there and save myself $400 or $500 per year. What do you use for your editing?
Premiere Pro.
Premiere Pro,
yeah, that's the only thing I know how to use.
And are you just getting that by itself, or are you getting the cloud?
I just get it by itself because I would get the cloud if I knew how to do the other things. Like if I taught myself how to make stuff, like, or take things away in like After Effects or in Photoshop. But I just use Premiere Pro because that's the only thing I know how to use.
Yeah, well, HitFilm Pro or HitFilm Express and HitFilm Pro is their paid product. The HitFilm Express is kind of you can buy extra features as you go, kind of. Can't remember what they call that, but I'm switching over to it, and I'm not. We're not getting paid. They're not our sponsor yet, but.
This portion of the podcast should be sponsored by HitFilm Pro or HitFilm Express.
Yeah, but definitely check it out. It's free if you're looking to, when your Premiere expires, because it's I so far haven't found a reason that it's that much different than Premiere. But
I need to check it out then, because that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to know, because I'm always looking for stuff like that and ways that I can improve it. And like I said, I might start farming things out where I just have people remove stuff in post, and I'll have to do that clean plate stuff. But I'm going to have to figure out how to do that. I have no idea how.
It's a pain, but yeah, you pretty much have to cut around. And for that video, I'd have to cut around the actual motorcycle and just cut everything out, because I'd actually like my clean plate to be everything but the motorcycle, so that nothing's shaking.
It looks so good though, like it looks so smooth, and that's one of the things that I struggled with the NASCAR stuff. I tried doing it in 15 frames at first, and I was like, this just doesn't look as good, and I had to incrementally move the camera too so that I could keep everything in frame and in focus. But then when I switched to 24, I was like, oh yeah, this looks way better.
Yeah, for when you get a lot of action, like car races, that's where it really falls in. Our first videos were the Hot Wheels, and I didn't know. I had no clue idea what we were doing. We were doing them at 20 frames a second, and I thought they look better than the 15, but 24 even looks better than the 20. But definitely cool. And you're using Dragon Frame, and you've got DSLR camera. How did you get your Lego collection now? How have you acquired things as of late? Are you buying them new or in garage sales?
So Bricks and Minifigs is a place that I go to a lot. I don't know if they have one. You guys are in Atlanta, right?
Yep.
They have a place similar in Atlanta, Atlanta Brick Company.
So okay. So it's kind of like a play it again sports of like Lego. Like you can go buy used Lego, you can buy new stuff. But they moved into Boise 3 years ago, and that was kind of what made this take off the way that it did. Because I went and was like, hey, I want to do a Tiger Woods video, but I need a bunch of green. And so I just bought the actual green plates that I needed and made this set and made that video. And then it went like crazy viral. And so I was like, uh-oh, I got to keep doing this. Like I'm onto something here. And then I've just kind of used them ever since. I use Bricklink when I need to buy like specific pieces and a lot of them. That's a site that's been pretty good for me. But at first I would just buy like whole sets just because I needed like 2 or 3 pieces out of the set. So I'd spend like $100 on a set just to get like a bald like Lego piece or something like that. Like for the Villanova one, I remember buying a Batman set for like $100 just so I could get one of their old coaches' hair pieces.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I can't believe I'm spending $100 on this just for one piece. But I don't do that anymore. I didn't know about Bricklink at the time when I did that, and they didn't have that stuff at Bricks and Minifigs, and so that's kind of what I did. But it's I don't know. Sometimes I'll get new sets. It's to the point now where people will be like, hey, I'm taking all of our kids' Lego to the thrift store. If you want it, you can have it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And so they'll bring me like giant things of Lego that I have to sort it, but then I just have a bunch more Lego. But yeah, I've got more Lego than I know what to do with now.
That's good.
Are you close to a Lego store?
To answer your question, I would put that into a budget. I would be like, hey, this is what I need for a Lego budget. For like the big companies that would reach out and be like, hey, we want you to make this. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to buy all this stuff for that. And you guys know better than anybody, Lego is super expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's for sure. Are you close to a Lego store?
No, they don't have one in Boise. So like I think the closest one to me is like 5 hours away.
Wow.
Is that Salt Lake City?
Yeah.
How far are you from Portland?
About 7 hours, I think.
Okay.
Ooh, nice. I
That's
like
cool.
Portland.
I love Portland.
Beautiful, nice people.
Uh-huh. It's kind of a weird city, but they like it weird. They try to keep it weird. Like they have a little slogan where it's like, keep Portland weird.
Yeah. Well, the television show Portlandia was a little too weird.
Yeah, that was...
And I like weird
I
stuff.
watched that. I have a buddy that worked on that show, but I've never watched that show.
It didn't quite
It was
work
just,
for me.
yeah, parts of it were just a bit
There were
annoying.
funny parts,
yeah.
but it was just a little bit out there.
Some people love it. I just haven't taken the time to get into it.
Yeah. Music.
Oh, yeah, right. What do you listen to while you're animating? Music, podcasts, TV, nothing? Your kids?
All of it. Now that I'm in a studio, I still listen to a lot of rap music. NF is a guy that I listen to quite a bit. But I'll listen to classical music. Like I'll listen to like Ed Sheeran, just like all kinds of things, but a lot of podcasts. It really depends on what I'm doing. Like if I'm animating faces where I have to be like zoned in on what the actual face looks like with each like vowel that they're saying, then I can't listen to anything and I just have to focus.
Not even music, huh? Okay.
But I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Okay. Yeah, and that's when I was doing my Oyo stint from 2014 to 16, you know, for the first third to half of it, I was listening to a lot of music, and then I got sick of music, and I discovered podcast, and I haven't looked back since. I mean, I loved it so much, I wanted to make one for ourselves. So,
what is your favorite podcast that you listen to?
A few. I really like the Joe Rogan podcast.
That's great.
I'm not as interested in his shop talk with comedians or the hunting or the fighting stuff, but a lot of his other stuff's good. I like Sean Carroll's podcast.
I don't know who that is.
He's a physicist. He actually, believe it or not, through a tweet helped my daughter out with a class project for a science project, so that was pretty cool. And he has a good. He talks about many worlds theories and just stuff that's just way above my pay grade intellectually. But I like his stuff.
It's crazy how you can reach out to people like that and they just like respond.
I love it when they do that.
Yeah, me too.
It says a lot about the type of person that they are.
Yeah, exactly.
And makes me like them even more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, definitely. But you know, I like a few different ones. But I probably listen to them more on my way to work, or if I have a job that's really boring and I can sit there and listen to a podcast all day, I'll listen to a podcast at that point. But I don't animate as much as I used to, but I try to get in there just because I love the art form. I just don't have as much time.
Yeah, it's so time consuming.
Yeah. We did a commission project this last summer, and it was pretty cool. It should be coming out around Christmas time this year. So we're kind of keeping our feet in the water, but not as much as we were a couple of years back.
Yeah.
But loving doing the podcast. We get to meet people, get to find out about new techniques sometimes.
And it's helpful to everybody, you know.
That and we love the community. They've been real good to us. So it's kind of a fun thing. And I'm sure, you know, we've missed out on asking lots of questions, but otherwise this is going to be a Joe Rogan linked podcast of 3 hours.
And that's right. Yeah, I just looked at the time.
Yeah,
it's quite quick.
It goes by real fast, but I think we really dove into this stuff and allowed you to tell your story. One last thing, kind of before we get out of here, have you had any concerns with this COPA stuff with YouTube coming out concerning your videos?
A little bit. I mean, it causes a little bit of anxiety just because, like how we talked about how I need to make more behind the scenes content.
Mm-hmm.
that's not necessarily just for kids to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So where they make you choose either for kids or not for kids, and there's no like mixed audience,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of is a little bit weird. But I think YouTube is changing. I think YouTube is kind of going more the way of like traditional media,
Mm-hmm.
and it almost seems like there's more censorship now, and that's not what YouTube used to be. So I mean, I think there's good things that will come from it, but there's also bad things, and trying to legislate something that like make rules around something that was from 1998
Mm-hmm.
is like a law from 1998 about the internet now. Like the internet is way different than it was in 1998.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. I think there needs to be more people that kind of reach out to like their lawmakers and let them know, hey, this is like viable business that you guys are going to be affecting here. And this is going to affect a lot more people than you think. And I think it's like that boomer generation that they talk about, where a lot of them just don't understand the internet. And I don't even myself understand the internet like I probably should, and like the younger kids do. But yeah, it's caused a little bit of anxiety. But I don't really make any money off of YouTube.
Yeah,
So
same.
I'm not super concerned. Like that, my AdSense stuff has never really been enough to even pay for a few Lego sets. So it's just like I'm not super concerned with that, but I am concerned for a lot of my creator friends, where it's just like this could change the game and make it so that so people are like not as creative as they should be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we feel exactly the same.
Now you have like 33,000 Instagram followers. Is there a way to monetize that?
No, the only way, I mean, I'm sure there is. Like I could do sponsored posts if I wanted to. I just don't want to monetize that way. Like I don't necessarily want to sell to my audience. Who I sell to is like big companies that want the attention that I get. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to kind of ride off of the coattails of the attention that I get, and they know that my videos will do big numbers for the most part. And so I think that's why they reach out to me. But I mean, I guess I could sell merchandise and things like that. I don't know. There's something about it that I'm just kind of like, I like doing what I do. I don't need to make millions of dollars off of it. It would probably be cool if I did, but at the same time, I don't necessarily want to do it at other people's expense. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We always buy so many things that it's like, why do we need all this crap? And so I don't know if I necessarily want to be a part of that, but I may change my mind. I never say never. It may, depending on how this goes. If I don't get as many commission jobs anymore, then I might have to start doing something else, or like a Patreon or something like that. But if I want to keep creating, but yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of conflicted with that on how I monetize, and at first I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to monetize this. I have no idea. My dad even said to me when the Tiger Woods won, I had just done an interview in Australia over Skype on like some golf channel. And he's like, it's too bad you can't monetize this. And I'm like, Dad, I just got interviewed in Australia. Like there's going to be a way that I can monetize this. And so I just thought it was funny that he didn't really understand, because he's more of the old school, like you go to college, you just get a regular job, work a 9 to 5 for the rest of your life and get your 401k and then you retire or whatever. And that's not the world we live in anymore. I'm like, I haven't, the longest I've ever had a job is like 5 years where I didn't like switch, and maybe that's because I just get like impatient with what I'm doing and I have to do something else. I don't know. That might be the ADD thing, but I didn't think I would do this as long as I've been doing it. But being your own boss there's something to be said about it, but also sometimes it's pretty difficult.
Yeah, but sometimes the opportunities that you get from some of these things are worth a lot more than the money that you would get from it.
Oh, for sure. And we talked about those broken roads, like just meeting Dave Portnoy and then making a video for him. I never would have made a video for Dave Portnoy had I not met him at the Daytona 500. And the fact that I met him there, I was just like, I'd heard bad things about the guy, so I was kind of unsure about him. And then I met him, and he was like one of the most nice, generous people. And I was like, I think the media is trying to paint this guy a little bit different than he actually is. And so that was kind of the unlock that I saw from him. now I talk to him in DMs every now and then, and who knows, we'll probably collaborate on something else.
Yeah, these
That's
are
awesome.
priceless experiences.
Well, I know you said on the Nitty Gritty podcast, and it was a statement that I even said to myself probably 2 years before you said it yourself. If I don't do this now, I'm going to always look back at this with regret of taking an opportunity to do something like that. And I was with my job for 19 years, and I couldn't live without regret. So I jumped and I did it, and I don't regret doing it.
Yeah, how did you get into it?
I was watching Robot Chicken one night, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And I wasn't even thinking Lego. And then when, around the kitchen table one night, my son was saying, oh yeah, there's this guy named Forrest Fire 101. He makes stop motion with Lego. It's pretty cool. So I looked at him and was like, oh, that's neat. You combine this with that, and you can tell stories. Rock on, let's go. And that's how it took off there. And then the Oyo connection happened because I entered a contest on Bricks in Motion. I didn't even win the contest. One of our past podcast guests won the contest. But ours was sort of the direction they wanted to go. It was more sports theme and less story. And they reached out and had us do a commission video, and that turned into a full-time gig with them.
That's crazy. Actually, a funny story about Oyo. When I got the Big Ten gig, when they were kind of going back and forth on whether or not we were going to use Lego, and Oyo actually tried to sway them to use you guys. They were like, you guys should probably use these guys, and so they almost talked me out of a job for you guys. And I was like, why would they do that? Like, it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth with them, where I'm like, because I found out, you know what I mean? Like, people find these things out. It's not like you can keep that a secret. Mm-hmm. And so it was just cool that, like, had Big Ten Network had I not done that work, I don't know if I ever would have jumped into doing this full time. So it was kind of cool. I'm glad that you guys were so busy that you probably couldn't have taken on the work anyways, because you guys would have kept me out of business.
Yeah. Well,
good that it worked out, but it's kind of nice that they went to bat for us. So that's sweet.
Oh yeah,
they
totally did. Yeah, no, I found that out later, and I was like, why do they not want me? But then it was cool that Big Ten Network was like, no, this is the guy that we want to use. So if you guys want to be a part of it, like, this is who we chose. So it was cool in both ways. It was cool that you guys, your guys's were going to bat for you, and mine were going to bat for me. And now we're on a podcast together, and we're friends.
Yeah,
well, definitely. For sure. Quick question before we let you go. Will there be any baseball brick films in your future?
I don't know. That's one thing that I get a lot. I was never a real big baseball fan, and baseball is kind of doing themselves a disservice with the way that they treat online media. Mm-hmm. And it almost makes it where it's not – it seems like it's a dying sport, where it's like it doesn't have it's losing attention. You got like esports and things like that coming along, and baseball is still kind of keeping their head in the sand. I'm sure if the Major League Baseball or like a team reached out to me and wanted to commission me to do something, I probably would. But that's another one that I kind of like Oyo almost more than I do using Lego. I don't know how I would use Lego. I guess I could do it the same way that I do golf, but I think that would be hard. I think it would be easier. I think it looks better in Oyo, but that's the thing, is more people like Lego. So when you're using Oyo, I remember telling Big Ten Network this. I was like, these videos aren't going to do as well in Oyo as they would if they were in Lego, because there's adult fans of Lego, and most kids are fans of Lego. And
Lego's a part of
Lego,
our culture.
Yeah, and
a lot
of people don't know what Oyo is. Like, I was trying to go to bat for Oyo, and then they're like not going to bat for me. So I thought that was kind of weird, because I remember talking about them on like an interview that I did, and then it just kind of worked out the way that it did. But it was, I don't know. I like using Lego better. Mm-hmm. Now that Oyo has kind of fallen by the wayside, and I don't even know if they're in business anymore. All the Oyo that you guys own might be worth a bunch of money someday.
Yeah, right. But it's funny, even when we were doing the Oyo videos and they would go viral, all the stories that were written on them always said Lego. I think it used to irritate them too.
Look at what these people did with Lego. And I've even seen some of you guys' interviews that you did. Uh-huh. or when they're not
Talking
interviews,
about
but
us,
like
yeah.
when they're talking about you, like on the news,
Right.
and they're always like, "Look at these Lego videos."
Yeah.
And people would always say that to me too. They're like, "This isn't Lego," and I'm like, "Yeah, thanks. I get that."
It was impressed. Was it our local station where the guy actually, I think he read word for word my description of the video, and he actually did refer to them as Oyo, and he said in addition to Lego. So I was impressed that he did that. Remember that was that guy, I think, on the Chipper Jones.
Oh, that was our first one, yeah.
Yeah, the one that hit our local news. So that was cool, and I remember hearing you talk about it. It's you get that dopamine injection when you see these things, blow up on the news. We always used to say it's like having a baby. You get so excited and you see all these things, and you just get that rush of excitement.
It really is. It's like these are your children that you're putting out into the world. Like, see how these kids do, like, let's see how successful these kids become. And I've never thought of it that way. Yeah, it is kind of like having a kid where you're just like, this is pretty, you get so excited about it.
Yeah, you're a proud parent, and you like it that everybody appreciates your baby as much as you do,
That's awesome. Well, I hope you keep getting tons more commission work so we can see you progress and see these awesome sports recreations
I
or
hope
more.
Something brings you to Atlanta so we can hang out with you, especially if you could bring your family, because our daughters are about the same age and have a lot in common, and it would just be fun to hang out with you. So I hope something brings you to Atlanta.
I would love it if something brought me to Atlanta. The only time I was ever in Atlanta, I was stuck in the airport for like 26 hours.
Wow. That sucks.
Wow, that's brutal. The
Masters
Masters are in Georgia.
Oh, there you go.
Who's in Georgia?
The Masters tournament.
Oh yeah, no. If we can hook up. Actually, I've talked about possibly coming down to the Masters this year. If that happens, I'll hit you guys up for sure.
Sounds good. Yeah.
I probably wouldn't bring my whole family, but I would be that's one of my bucket list items. I want to go to the Masters.
Very cool.
Yeah, no, we'd look forward to that. And also when we win the lottery, too.
And when you win the lottery.
We'll pay for all of you to come here.
When you guys win the lottery, let's go to the Masters.
Yeah, totally. Family event. Love it.
That's right.
All right. Well, looking forward to your secret project in February and everything else that you do. We love seeing how you're growing and how people are getting to know you like we are, because you're just awesome. You're a lot of fun, and you deserve all the success that you're getting. So can't wait to see what else you do.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's fun to talk to people that actually kind of know what goes on behind the scenes, and they understand in a way that you can't understand unless you've actually done it.
Yeah, we feel your pain.
You guys know the struggle.
Oh,
the
struggle's real.
Yeah. Well, thank you so
pleasure.
much for spending this much time with us and opening up. You're a pleasure to chat with and to watch. So everybody really needs to not only see your work, but all of the interviews, because you're fun.
I was wondering when you guys were going to have me on. I'm finally fancy enough to get on this podcast. I was hoping that it would happen someday.
Well, no, we found out that you're not fancy, and that's why you're on. It's like, that's our kind of guy. We got to have him on.
Too much.
All right. Well, it's holiday time, so wishing you and your family a wonderful holiday season. Enjoy some time off together and lots of presents, and enjoy the snow for me. And please send some my way if at all possible.
I'll see what I can do. If I can bottle it up and send it to you, I will.
Appreciate it. Love it. All right. Thanks again, Jared.
Thank you.
Looking forward to seeing what you got going. We'll keep in touch.
Thanks, guys.
All righty. Bye.
Thanks so much to Jared for spending so much time with us, and thanks to everyone who stuck with us through this entire podcast. Please check out our sponsors and partners on the Brick Filmers Guild homepage, and don't forget to check out Jared's amazing brick films on his YouTube channel, and especially on Instagram and Twitter. All of his links will be written in the description under the video. We want to give a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters: Spuggastew, Frame 5 Studios, Mind Game Studios, Dark Dragon Films, Forest Fire 101, Sanjira, Spencer Katz, and Paganimation. You guys really inspire us to keep creating more of these in-depth conversations with the world's great brick filmers. If you would like to sponsor one of our podcasts, please contact me through one of our social media sites. The sponsors we have are always brick film related and are products that we use ourselves and highly recommend. We would like to thank Kevin MacLeod for his wonderful music, which we use for our podcasts and in our brick films. If you're listening to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube, please like or rate, comment, and share on your social media. We'd really appreciate that. So, until next time, bye y'all.